We are live. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. I am Merrill Gilbert. I am the co-founder and CEO of Trace Trust, and we make edibles credible, and we do that by two ways. We have 2 third-party certifications coming out to the public and retailers to identify safe and reliable products, a true dose for cannabis and HGMP for hemp-derived products. We also help people in manufacturing scale, but also people that are looking to formulate and go from maybe smaller productions to full-scale production. We come from a long line of food and beverage manufacturing, Hatab training, food safety training, and we're really excited to be here today, but also I'm really excited to talk about this topic. When Kat came to me from New West with this topic, I was like, wow, that's a lot. And then as the panel took shape, we got such a great opportunity here. And so I am going to very quickly let my panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to dive into this topic and allow some time for Q&A at the end. So good morning.
All righty. Good morning to all of you. My name is Michael Key. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Impello Biosciences. We use next-generation biotechnology to improve cannabis and hemp yield and quality in the field. We produce biostimulants, which are like fertilizers, but kind of the next level. So that includes microbial products, different biochemical products, all designed to improve the spectrum of cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids in the plant. We improve yield, of course, on top of what you can do with fertilizer. And this is both indoors and outdoors. We're based in northern Colorado and sell our products all over the world.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christie Ellis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blaze. We are an ERP for the cannabis industry. Started on the retail-focused delivery side of the house here in California, and now I've expanded into distribution and into cultivation most recently. So excited to be here with everyone and talk about all the day-to-day operations everyone needs to deal with.
I'm Blaine, co-founder and CEO of Distru. So we make software for manufacturers and distributors in the cannabis industry, and we integrate with Metric.
Hi, my name is Kira Reed. I am the founder of Marker Digital. We're a socially focused branding agency in cannabis. I'm also the founder of Women Empowered in Cannabis. I am the co-founder of Lady Jane Society, which is an event production company for women's organizations, for women in cannabis. And also, what is the thing I'm leaving out? Oh, Caden Matchmaking. We're about to launch a platform for matchmaking companies with women in cannabis who are looking for jobs.
You're not doing enough.
Well, I'm a woman in cannabis. That kind of goes without saying.
All right, so we are going to start off with a little state of the state, and I'm going to put Blaine on the spot because we have been spending a lot of time on conversations around Metric, but it has not been I don't even want to use the word easy because that's not even close, but it has been a lot to take on, and I would love for you to tell us where we are and what we can expect to get things moving ahead in the future.
Yeah, and so we mostly cover manufacturing and distribution, so I can give more of a landscape of that, but because we buy from cultivators and they sell to retailers, we have a good sense of things. Right now, everyone's just trying to get on Metric. People are getting on slowly but surely. I just talked to some distributors, and they said it went from 50% of their suppliers that are on Metric are now to 70%. So it's coming, it's there. There's a lot of education problems, and there's a lot of misunderstanding how to use things, because a lot of the trainings are really cultivation focused. So the retailers, distributors, and the manufacturers really don't know what's going on. So a lot of the software companies like us and Blaze or Meta or whatever, we're all just trying to educate people. The biggest things that people are dealing with are tag limits. You can't order enough tags to put the actual Metric tags on your inventory, and it causes massive problems for these operators. If you want to serialize your inventory and put a Metric barcode on every single case, you can't because the government doesn't give you enough tags. So right now, it's just figuring out your supply chain and how you want things to work with what they're giving you is a hard problem. And I could go on and on with other problems. I think I'll highlight the other like two big ones I think that are relevant is external transfers and license transfers. So California is the only state that you really have to do external transfers, which means you're buying or selling inventory to a non-metric operator, and so you have to basically create the transfer from them or to them, pretending that they're a licensed operator. And just there's two flows. It's just confusing. You're like, oh wait, I'm sending inventory to Stephanie, and you're like, oh yeah, are they licensed or not? Oh, did they get their metric account? I can't remember. Let me call them. That's probably the number one thing I see happen on a day-to-day. And then another problem, just lack of clarity on how to handle certain scenarios, like how to use categories. Like there's just so many categories they give you, and there's so many unit types, and there's like weight each, and you're just trying to understand, like, I'm just trying to sell a jar of flour. And they're like, can I just call it a unit? Like, I'm selling 1/8. Like, no, you have to do grams. Like, wait, so when I sell my eighths, I have to sell it as 35 grams, not 10/8. That's a very confusing concept when you look at a sales order and you see 35 grams for 10/8. You're like, what is this? So it's just education, and I really just think we're going to get through it, and eventually we'll get everyone on metric, and we'll just get there together.
Are there tools that are useful that people can access to kind of guide them a little bit better? And then is there any conversations going on, to simplify this in the sense of, can we agree what a unit is and what a,
I really think that that's been the worst job done by everyone in the industry, is just like the unification of education and dissemination of information. It's just so ununified. Like I literally see the same question asked by multiple operators to BCC, metric, CDFH, and they get different responses, and it's very confusing, and then they spread that amongst each other. I think it's really in the hands of the software providers like us and Blaze and all these other companies. We're taking that on. Like, talk to our customer success team. We will educate you. I've seen you watch the video and you're like, cool. And then you watch another video, you're like, awesome. Then you go to metric training, cool. Then you actually get on metric and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, literally no idea. And I'm seeing inventory discrepancies of what their actual inventory is of like hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. Like, it's bad. It's really bad. So, I mean, and they just don't have enough time. That's the problem. If they just had more time and just like could take a day to just learn about metric and just like work with our success team, I think that they would then get there, but it's just a bandwidth problem.
Well, it'll be a good follow-up after this. So, Chris, how we kind of just started on this, but how does this really affect the supply chain? Like, where do we go from here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Blaine just kind of covered the distribution, manufacturing side of metric, so I'll take a minute to kind of describe state of affairs for the retailers. So retailers, for example, they're trying to bring in purchase orders. They are moving tons of units throughout the day. And right now, I would say, you gave a 50, 70 kind of jump in percentage of people on metric. I would say 50% of retailers are still not on metric. So when they're receiving products in and they happen to be on metric, we have to create all these packages and metric out of thin air, right? We have to make up these cultivators that quote unquote made this product, create a package, get that ready for sale. We have to buy package tags, which usually retailers don't do package tags. Usually they come in through the distro chain, it's already attached to it, things are moving. So it's causing a lot of confusion. It's definitely hurting businesses right now because they're having to take that day that they really don't have to give to understand what's going on, interface with us and our customer support team, interface with the PCC, and try to figure out what is actually happening here. You layer that on top of all the other supply chains and e-commerce channels coming up. You've got orders coming in online. You've got events going on. There's just so many things going on right now. And again, there's just not a thorough understanding really of how an operator on the retail side is supposed to really leverage metrics. So we're trying to educate as best as we can, and that's kind of where we're at right now from the retailer side.
And then we go, to Mike. So you're at the very beginning of this process, and I want to get your thoughts on it, but then I also want to segue into the bigger part of this conversation, and that is, where's the future of the products? Where's the future of differentiation? How, and go to Kira to that to start talking about who the consumer is and how all of this comes together.
Yeah, I'll do my best to tie this together. But so we're way upstream. Obviously, we work with inputs, and obviously that has an effect all the way downstream. So when we're products getting into metric, I think one of the things that us at Impello and other input and cultivators look at is there's no real way to, or for the consumers to differentiate between those downstream products. I mean, how many of you know exactly what your what the last flower you bought was grown with? And you might not care. You might not think that you need to care, but in reality, there's a lot of importance behind that. Look at this whole vape crisis thing that we're going through. It's not a THC or a CBD or a nicotine thing, for the tobacco side of things. It's all these, inputs are having some effect on that, whether the input is in the production side of it or the cultivation side of it. So we're trying to elucidate a little bit for consumers, by improving what cultivators are using and understanding how it's impacting the overall product quality. So, yeah, I mean, how do people differentiate the end product? Well, I think people care about sustainability, people care about quality, obviously, but I don't think people even know what quality really means. If you try and break that down, there's a lot of inputs when you're growing a crop that influence the way that the plant obviously grows, and then everything downstream from that, things that we don't even deal with, harvesting techniques and technologies, and making sure the product is clean when you're manufacturing it, making sure the lab is meeting certain guidelines like GMP. And so trying to tie some sort of, almost making metric and including more transparency in metric and just throughout products is pretty important, I think. It's a tough thing to kind of tie all this together, I guess, but.
And this is the thing. I mean, what's great about gathering in this type of a summit is the fact that we are really the industry, and we have the opportunity. And with so much consumer confusion, how do we get through this? Where are we at, and where do we go from here?
That is the million-dollar question. So when it comes to consumers specifically, we're still in a world where the rec rules, right? So the young guys who are coming in to buy high THC products, and so we're seeing a lot of brands, a lot of retail, and a lot of product manufacturers basing their branding on communicating that, or not really caring. And listening to this behind the scenes of what's going on and what a lot of retailers and manufacturers are dealing with right now, it's just getting the product out there. They don't have time to say, what is my branding and marketing strategy? Which I understand, but what it's doing is it's leaving this gaping hole of consumers. And since we went rec legal, a lot of us in the industry have known women and the elderly are going to be the consumers that drive this industry. But it's not there yet, but it's coming. And so we're seeing all of these dispensaries that are very rec driven. I mean, I drive down the freeway and I just, oh God, what are you doing? Why are you presenting yourself like that? Because they go out and they say, well, my product's selling. We're selling. We don't have to do this. But they do, because they're leaving customers in the cold that are terrified to come in. And CBD is doing wonders for bringing people in and normalizing cannabis. But then they turn around and go, where do I go? That place seems scary to me. Those products seem overdone. We know we need more microdosing products in the marketplace. But what's the incentive? It's selling right now. And I don't know anybody that is having a hard time selling their product. So that's kind of where we are. And until every state is online, until we have a true understanding, because we're still collecting data, we could say this is where things are going to go, and then 10 more states could become rec legal and throw everything we've thought off. I don't think that will happen, but it could. So it's really also difficult to convince my clients to spend a ton of money in this branding. Is it going to work? We don't know. We don't have empirical data to go on to say this is exactly how this customer is going to act. So right now, I really believe everybody's just focused on getting the product out, making sure it's compliant, fighting the black market. That's where we are right now. And it's unfortunate because we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a massive audience of people who are ready to come in and start buying, who have no entry point.
That's such a great segue into the next question, and I'm going to kind of open this up. But profitability is an issue. We got taxes at every which way possible. And then we've got pricing at the retail side kind of based on potency versus. So it kind of doesn't always equate in the sense of if I'm trying to make a low-dose product to appeal to somebody, you can't really compare that to something that has a high THC.
In the panel yesterday, they were talking about beverages at 5 milligrams for $18. No dispensary wants to carry that, and I don't want to pay $18 for I want the 5 milligrams, but I don't want to pay $18 for it.
So how do we, use, particularly, one good thing about ARPAs and the districts, you guys give us good information.
Right.
It's not just good, we have to put the inputs in, but how do we use this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll kind of reference a few partners that we work with. One in particular is Headset. I'm sure if you guys don't know in the room, Headset's a business intelligence platform for the cannabis industry. So they're really looking at segments within California, across the nation. They even have a lot of data on Canada right now. So as an ERP, specifically on the retail side, we're piping data from the retailer into these kind of business intelligence tools to say, okay, what's our segment that we're hitting today? In this case, if we look at Southern California, we may say that 21 through 30-year-olds are buying the majority of the product, but how does brands actually leverage this data? And that's really where Headset would come in. They open this data up to brands to look at kind of where is the missing market, right? Where can we actually fit in here? Where's the right product market fit for this given segment? So that's what we're doing. We can't do it all, that's for sure. We have to partner, and that's why I love summits like this. We're bringing everyone together and really trying to elevate the industry, but it's just getting more insights into this data, really.
The other thing is we have obviously a lot of people coming in, right? We've had hundreds of millions of investment, a lot of people coming in from other traditional pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, CPG, et cetera. However, I think where there's sometimes a big disconnect is in the actual understanding about this industry, how this works, right? How do we do that? How do we bring them in, but also get them educated also for all the hard work that's been going on for 10, 20 years, but more importantly, the last 5 years, and transitioning to a very legal.
Right. I mean, I think the onus is entirely on us, right? Like, it's our responsibility to change how we're branding and marketing all of these products to make it more accessible, to make, to open some doors for people who feel like they don't have anywhere to go in the industry. Everyone in this crowd understands the value of this plant and the industry, whether it's hemp or cannabis. But the problem is that, it's just not accessible the way that we're talking about it and the way that we're branding a lot of these things. And that, is not something that's insurmountable. The issue here, think about organic foods. People have no problem paying a little bit more for something that was grown organically. And it's very, very clear when something was grown organically. It's labeled as USDA organic. Okay, we can't use the USDA logo right now, and some people do their best to market something as full spectrum or organically grown, but there's nothing really behind that. There's nothing. There's no traceability, I guess. Nobody really calls you out.
There will be soon.
Yeah, if you say that we grew it sustainably or we grew it organically, well, what does that mean, and why do the consumers even care about it? I think it is the responsibility of everyone here, whether it's a distribution network or the end marketer, seller, or the grower in the first place to stay in their lane essentially, but pick it and really own up to it and try and do their best to produce something and stand behind it and make it clear that that's what you're doing. If you want to grow something sustainably, well, you better be growing it sustainably and then doing everything else sustainably. If you want to just be cheap and not charge $18 for 5 milligrams, you got to make your entire operation efficient. That it goes from cultivation all the way down through the supply chain, to the end distribution of the product. So, everything has to kind of line up better than it does right now, and that's all on us.
So is there a part of the supply chain, right, that really comes into starting to tell the story? Because obviously this is seed to sale. we have now many different ways of growing, extracting, infusing. How do we bring the retailer onto this, right? Because this is, at the end of the day, it's training to the bud tender, but it's also this new consumer that doesn't necessarily, is not going to go to a dispensary and not going to have that interface. And so how do we find new ways in which to communicate this? In addition to, terminology is still very loose, and we do have to, at some point, in the same way that we just said about track and trace, like, we got to get uniform in that as well. But how, what's the thoughts on that?
I mean, to be honest, I just don't think that's like track and trace. I just don't think it's like a very disconnected thing from branding. Like, to be honest, I think that there's branding teams and there's like product teams on these companies. But if you look at what she was saying, what defines a healthy company right now and like what they should be focused on, it's just getting the product in and tested and out there and all of that. Like, just that. Like, if you're not focused on that, like, just get whatever product you have right now and get it in the stores and get it in all the stores and get it at a good price and get your cost down. So I honestly don't think this branding thing and all these types of product lines should be top of mind if you're that company. Like, as long as you have a product, like, have a product, like have a product that people want. But yeah, make sure you get your supply chain dialed in, or else you're pretty dead.
Well, I think that's a little short-sighted, to be honest. If you're only focused on near-term gains, you're not going to be around for the long term. And I think it actually is pretty crucially important to everyone in this industry to want to correlate track and trace right now to the end product. I mean, if you don't do that, there is no credibility long term. I mean, if you're gonna stand there, sell a product, just try and push a product out, and I understand that the business need to do that, obviously. I mean, I don't think we're disagreeing on that, but it's not helping this entire industry at all. I mean, people are going to jump on that and say there is no credibility in that industry. There is no no reason that we should believe what these people are selling. It is our responsibility right now to do that, to forego a little bit of the short-term gains to stand for whatever we're doing. And I think that does start right now. So if you have a product to push into the supply chain, absolutely do it, but stand behind what it actually is. And I think that's not really asking too much. Most industries do that. It's just a little harder.
Yeah, and just to jump on that a little bit more, I mean, we're seeing both sides, right? I'm seeing people that need to make their margins because they spent so much money on just getting to the point where they're at. They need to recoup, but at the same time, they're working incredibly hard through the supply chain to develop these really established relationships with, whether it be small boutique farms, and saying, hey, look, we're going to source from you for the next year and a half, 2 years, because we know exactly what we're doing. We know exactly what you're doing, what you're putting into that plan, and the consistency of it. So I think it's a little bit of both. We need to make sure that, one, continuing to kind of develop these relationships down the supply chain, because right now it's pretty segmented. I think that's just going to lead into better education to the retailers, to the customers, and I think kind of bridge the gap there.
I do want to say, I feel like I came across a little negative there, but I actually look at this.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And
Right.
and you're absolutely right to say that, because if you look at the number of brands on the shelf right now who have gone through all that time and money to get themselves there, and they are indistinguishable from everything else on the shelf, you're playing a losing game.
Yeah. I mean, you can't beat everyone by doing exactly the same thing that they're doing. It's following somebody in a race. You got to go on a different track to get around them. It's an opportunity, though. That being said, so yeah, it is painfully hard to think about how you're going to do something differently and how you're going to spend money when you already spent tons and tons of money to develop the brand that you have. But it's an awesome opportunity to sit there and look at your competition and say, well, everyone's talking about this and this and this, and well, actually literally everyone is talking about the same 5 things. Let's focus on like 2 different things. What actually makes us better? What actually should make people want to buy our product? And let's educate people on why that's important. I mean, it's not I don't think anybody who's new to the cannabis industry really understands a lot of the lingo and jargon that we throw around. It's our responsibility to teach people what things are and why it matters, and that's an awesome opportunity for brands. I mean, if you can convince somebody that what you're doing is solid and there's reason behind it and it's better, that's like the best opportunity for marketing or branding or anything that I could imagine, and you could follow that all the way through the supply chain.
Well, we've got great brands out there right now. We do have
sure,
some.
yeah.
I mean, Lowell's is just hat off to that company. They are doing brilliant stuff with their packaging. Their whole brand vibe is phenomenal, but it's very rare. But before we move on, I just want to comment on one thing that you said earlier. So we're dealing with consumers as part of our industry, but we're also dealing with a lot of new people coming in on the enterprise side. And what I'm finding from my position in marketing is that a lot of these companies approach me and say, oh, hey, we want to create messaging for the industry and we want you to help us. And basically what they're saying is we want you to teach us about cannabis for free. And we don't know anything, but we're going to come in with our traditional marketing. We're going to try and apply it here. And I see this with enterprise software. I see it with marketing. I see it in a lot of ancillary services. And this is not okay with me. And I hope it's not okay with anybody here who has been in the industry for a while. We have fought hard for the information that we know and the knowledge that we have, and to just have people come in, and when you said in a lack of authenticity, that's what's happening right now. We have companies coming in that don't know anything about this industry, and they're trying to create products and brands and imagery that does not resonate. It is not part of what we're trying to do here. So that is another thing that is coming from the enterprise side that affects our consumers, because they're not educating. They're putting huge amounts of money behind something that isn't moving the needle for us at all. So it's confusing the market.
And I think they're, traveling around the country over the last several months and, visiting in every legal state, any kind of dispensary. We're so spoiled in California. We have the root of the plant. And northern to southern even is a stretch, but we have such great opportunities to be able to especially with multi-state operators, right? So replicating your supply chain and building a product profile that actually goes beyond now really can become the foundations of your company, and you got to ask these deeper questions, and it is. I mean, Kara and I know each other, but it is a lot of the work that we do with our clients. Like, we don't start any work without spending time and asking some real, where do you want to be? What do you want this to do? When do you want somebody to experience this? Do you want it to be fast? Do you want it to be slow? We are talking about experiences. It's no longer how high can I get or relieving my pain. It really is. And we have to have those conversations in a grown-up way before, again, branding and marketing come in and do things that really aren't deepening all the potential of this plant.
It's not just about making money.
It's not, no. So that is going to, we have just a couple of minutes before I want to switch, but technology is a big part of this. It's the biggest. We are all using our tools in our hands, on my wrist, which I really think is my family tracking me. But it is really about the opportunities in that. So, we've got such a great perspective here, and I'd really like you all to take a little minute and let's just talk about the opportunity with tech and education, and, a little not just about the tools themselves, but how we can interface that.
I would love to take that one, if that's okay.
Jump right in.
Yeah, so, we have brands that are doing some amazing things, right? You were talking about Lowell. I would also mention Dosis as well. This is a new change. We're starting to see direct-to-consumer type of approaches, and this is something where, these are, you look at Apple, you look at Samsung. I used to interface with Samsung prior to my cannabis career, and getting to the customer and actually controlling that message, controlling that experience is so hard. It really is, but, kudos to these companies that are trying to actually control that retail experience, control the vibe, understand that this is an education center. We're here to learn and present that message. So I think direct consumer D2C is something that's coming very, very quickly, and technology has to be there to make these things move in a quick and efficient manner. So understanding that, hey, we have to partner with retailers because of the way the licensing is structured, right? Although I'm a brand, I'm a manufacturer, I need a retail partner. In this case, I may acquire a retail license to make sure that my product and my messaging is consistent all the way through. So I think that's a very big topic. I think delivery is going to dovetail off that considerably. We're seeing that picking up here in California tremendously. I foresee retail being the education center. You go in, kind of learn about the plant, you understand your brands, and after that, it's going to be the Amazon 2-hour experience. I would like it in an hour and a half, please. Where are you? Why aren't you here? So for me, that's what we're focusing on, making sure that supply chain is just extremely efficient but it's all in the effort of backing these brands so they can have that experience that they're really looking to drive.
Right. And I think technology is a crucial part, and it's crucial throughout this entire thing. Like, you make a really good point. Direct to consumer is important, and then the consumer needs to know what's going on. But technology should be helping brands get there, from the input side all the way through everything else. It's supposed to be a tool. It's not supposed to be burdensome, and it is, really a great opportunity. I mean, use this technology to educate consumers better. If retail is going to be an education center, I actually really like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Use the technology to help get there. Yeah, it might be a little bit of a pain, growing pains to get to that point and to make the technology efficient. But it can actually help do it better and educate people better and differentiate products better.
Can I weigh in on this too? So from the marketing perspective, with the exception of social media tools, et cetera, I'm kind of more interested in watching what evolves. And I had a grower tell me once, if you embrace the mother, she will imbue you with creativity and ideas that never existed before. And so when I look out at the potential with technology, I like to think, I don't even know what people are going to come up with, because once you really do embrace this experience and you embrace the medicine and you embrace everything that means about patient care and healing and helping the planet, we're going to have some really brilliant solutions coming out over the next couple of years. So I'm really excited to see that.
I want to, there's a mic over there, so if you want to ask any questions, we're going to switch to that. I just encourage two things in that thought process. One is, with the mindset around experiences, and for new and returning people, we are moving so forward. The beverage world is really a great entry, because it really is something that now you can do socially. It's something that you already are used to. I mean, think about that. Also, if you are a product base, think about ways in which you can do multi-packs. I mean, there's a couple of pre-roll companies that, in the same package give you 3 or 4 Lowell, Humboldt, that give you 3 or 4 different ways. So again, don't think about the person you've always sold to. Think about the person you're going to, go to next. I also encourage everyone here, go outside of our industry, and if it's appropriate, go and show up at other types of events and start having open conversations about cannabis, and cannabis being a safe and reliable consuming way. It can be it can relieve pain, it can do a lot of things, but we have to tell the story. So, it's okay to come out of the shadows now and talk about it socially.
Yeah. And before we go to Q&A, I just want to chime in one thing. First of all, love the passion, and take shots, I love it. But I have one job. My job is to make distributors and manufacturers not spend all this time on track and trace and metric, so they can focus on this. If you want to tell them about how they need to brand their package, tell that to Tiffany, who stayed up for 18 hours for 5 days in a row, and you're like, can you make sure that the labeling is really beautiful? And she's like, fuck you, dude. I need to get this sticker on there and get it out. I am sleep deprived. I'm serious, our operators are working, what was it? One of them works 16 hours a day. A team of 5 works 16 hours a day for the last 3 weeks. That's how bad the track and trace system is right now, right? It's I'm just focused on getting them past that.
And we appreciate you doing that, because until they do, we can't push the branding and marketing message.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Which I
You're doing
think is
a
the
crucial
next
job.
All right, we have some people lining up, so let them, because they're going to kick us off of here.
Hey there, thanks guys. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Nancy Birnbaum, Sensi Magazine. Kyrie, you kind of tapped on this just a little bit, or touched on it packaging-wise, but with respect to retail disruption and certainly market impact, there wasn't a lot of discussion, and there hasn't been here, around sustainable packaging. And this is kind of my commitment this year, is to keep that going, that discussion going. And so I'm wondering how you guys are all looking at this potential for the cannabis industry to really lead the way in breaking the plastic habits. So,
well, my hope, thank you, Nancy, that's a really important question, because we are we are just such a wasteful industry right now. It's painful to me every time I open up a pre-roll wrapped in plastic, in a plastic tube. I mean, we just had a huge event, and it was just shameful how much waste we created. But I'm very, very optimistic that my husband is in hemp. He is right now in the field. They're harvesting their first crop. We are going to see hemp is going to change our industry. And I am a big believer, and I have a lot of faith in the fact that we are going to find these solutions within our industry with our own product very soon. We just haven't gotten there yet in the timeline. So
yeah, that's a really good point. If I can add on to that, the packaging is super important. There's a ton of waste. It's like disgusting how much. But it is important, too, to consider how much waste is in the cultivation side. I mean, if you look at a field, you look at a cornfield, there's not very much plastic in it. If you look at a hemp field, there are, and I'm not kidding, on a normal 30, 40 acre farm, there can be 80 miles of plastic tape that they lay down, whether for drip lines or for, preventing weeds growing right around the plants. That's not recyclable. It is not necessary if they just, put a little effort into planting closer, more densely, and a lot of this needs to be worked out too, so I'm not just ripping on these guys, but it is something that, there's an easy solution and there's the right solution, or several right solutions. Let's make sure that when, you're buying a product, you're considering how it was grown. So packaging, yeah, super, super important. But let's, if somebody wants to use very sustainable packaging, that's excellent. Let's make sure they're actually, going back with that too and growing sustainably and operating sustainably.
Hi, I'm Ron Johnson with Rollins Inc. I had two questions, one from Michael Key and the other was for Chris and Blaine. I'll start with Michael Key. You kind of took the words out of my mouth when you talk sustainability. How many growers would you say are growing sustainably? Like I see it in indoor, I see it in outdoor. Rockwell cubes are really inefficient, don't biodegrade. So how many growers would you say are growing sustainably, and where do you see that trend going in the future? So that was my question for you guys. And then for Chris and Blaine, my question was more metric focused. I felt like, do you think we're getting too concerned about Metric? It's a privatized company that has a limited contract with the state of California. So, I mean, that could go away. So do you think we're becoming too focused, and what would an alternative to Metric look like that didn't cause so much of a headache?
So yeah, the question, I can't give you a solid number, but I will say there's some farms, we work with a lot of hemp farms, and there's some hemp farms that are doing really, really good work. Functional Remedies is one that we're closely associated with in Colorado. They produce just a really, really high quality product, and they're incredibly sustainable. Everything that they're doing, they actually have almost driven themselves into the ground a few times because they try to do everything right, and it's not easy. It's painful. I am good friends with some guys there, and they put the work in. 16 hours of work a day, but not for a couple days or a week. They're doing 16 hours a day as farmers for years and years and years. That's worth it. I will say, just last note, I look at sustainability as somewhere between organic and conventional, and I think there's a little bit too much focus on, or people correlate sustainability and organic too closely. That's not really the case. I don't think people should demonize any farmer who's using a conventional nutrient, which could be petroleum derived. I'm not encouraging that, but they can actually be highly efficient, and sustainability is not necessarily 100% organic or 100% conventional. It's a combination of the best technologies from both of those sides of the spectrum. So if you want to be the most sustainable that you can be, and there's some farms doing this really well, you can be indoors or you can be outdoors. You can use conventional nutrients or organic nutrients. Just, again, it has to make sense. It has to kind of go hand in hand with itself. So, yeah, I think, I'll put a number on it. Maybe 10% of the industry is actually sustainable. The other 90% could get there pretty easily, but they got to start doing it now.
Great question on Metric, by the way. Love that. We're right now as a software company, we're starting to work with BioTrack to get into other states. So completely understand. At the end of the day, we have to put a lot of emphasis on Metric. If we don't, these companies are not going to be here. It's just the way the laws are written, the regulations are written. So we need to support them. We need to put all of our resources there to, again, where we can, an hour in the day, an hour in the week, educate these people as much as we can, these operators. That said, I believe if you are going to be in the track and trace, software game, you should be a track and trace software. We, at Blaze at least, can go offline of Metric and just basically replicate what Metric does, right? But make it very easy for an operator to manage the crops, manage the distro center, and also manage their the retail. So totally agree with you that we're spending way too much time talking about this and way too much time in operations. I think there's a very good chance that they may not be here in a couple years. My viewpoint is if you're going to be a state system like this, your job is to reduce the friction in operations, not cause more friction, right? And that is all done via technology today. And again, I would totally commend you on that comment. We're just spending way too much time on this, to be honest.
If anything does replace them, I just hope that it's a software that's similar in the infrastructure to Metric. I mean, they all look kind of similar, though, like BioTrack and Leaf Systems. So I think if they were replaced, it would be something pretty comparable to it. I disagree, though, that their job is to make the operations easier. Their job is to help the government catch fraudulence. That's it. And capture taxes. Don't forget that. That's what track and trace is for, not to help you.
Hold up. I would like to comment on that real quick. So,
I'm just saying, I don't know, that's what I think it is.
I mean, I don't understand, on that comment. I think, if you've got a system that's supposed to help the government track all these things, you'd want to make it easier, right, for these inputs to go in so you can properly track it. There's, very easy things that can be extended on Metric, open up new APIs, making APIs a little bit more extensible for software operators like us to tap into them so that, an operator doesn't have to click a button in Blaze or another software and then jump into Metric just to make sure it went okay, and if not, double click a button. That's just a waste of time. It's not helping. We're spending, I was at a farm up in Mendocino. They have 3 people dedicated just to Metric entries. 3 people. It's crazy. That's a lot of cash going out the door, so, supporting these folks, and they could honestly be doing so much other things to increase the value of the business that, again, it is there for regulation, completely agree with you, but at the same time, it's 2 to 3 steps away, maybe 2 months worth of development just to get it so that things are way more seamless.
I mean, I do agree that they have the opportunity to make everyone's lives easier, but when they were rolling out Metric, they rolled it out because they wanted the Fed to be able to work with them so they could allow legal banking in California, so that way the FDIC would back those banks. That's why they rolled out track and trace so quickly, or wanted to roll it out. So just that's the reason why. And so they're trying to prove to the feds that California is clean and not fraudulent, so you can get banking. So I mean, that's just my view, but I totally understand they do have the opportunity. I can't wait for them to hopefully go in that direction.
Well, at least the sticker companies are making money. Because everybody else isn't on that. We have time for one more question. So,
Hi, I'm John Plemons. I am a grower, recent Cal Poly graduate.
Yeah,
Broncos.
Oh, no, Mustangs.
The other one.
Cal
It's
Poly,
sister
Cal
schools. Sister schools. Yeah. As somebody that would really like to stay in the cultivation space, whether it's in the cannabis or hemp world, it's really weird being a recent college graduate, having spent 5.5 years getting this fancy plant science degree, working in a lot of different fields prior. It's kind of gotten me to the point where and what better group of people than a bunch of CEOs and founders to ask, if, because I'm not the only 28-year-old that's a fresh college grad with this fancy botanical type degree that isn't able to break into the space but really wants to. Kind of wondering everyone's thoughts about becoming self-employed.
Do it.
Maybe not even in the cannabis space until I can afford to start my own farm back up again yet.
well, you're very lucky. You're standing close to one of the most influential and best cultivators around, Swami. I also encourage you, we have, the future is so much ahead of us. The plant genetics, we're really just at this tipping point. And so, we encourage growers. We encourage, there's just a lot to be done. And in the hemp side, again, coming back to education, hemp cultivated for consumption is very different than hemp for industrial. Making rope and making CBD are very different things. And so we really need people with your education. And to really come into this and really help differentiate that. We have great opportunities for regenerative farming, and this is a plant, but it's not a plant that, oh, I'm just going to go, pull up my soybeans and start growing. You can't do that. It takes a long time to clean that soil, and so we have to really have education around soil health, and in the same way we talk about wine, but there's a lot of opportunity there. So I encourage you.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, with your plant science degree, it's a perfect industry to get into. You're going to see inefficiencies that other people, even people with degrees, don't see right now. And people can only focus on so much. I think that's kind of what we're, one of the themes of this talk is that, there's a lot to juggle, and sometimes things fall through the cracks, and it's really obvious, or it's going to be really obvious to somebody like you. Capitalize on it. Figure out a way that you can help people, and in turn help yourself. But this industry is ripe with opportunities like that. There are so many inefficiencies, and we need people to help, but we also need to be willing to accept that help when it presents itself, and start embracing those new technologies that hopefully you will be developing.
One last thing to add on to that, and I think common theme up here, just give before you take, right? So if
Thank
you've
you.
got advice and you have this background, and there's people up in Mendocino that have been growing for 30 plus years, help them, and then figure out how you can expand your business. That's a big thing that I see people jumping in, and it was mentioned earlier, they just want to get going. They're asking, very serious operators to educate them. And it's like, they have so much going on. Like, come in and provide value right away, and it'll come back to you tenfold.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you, and thanks, panelists. It was great.